is up, ladies and gentlemen? We are back. We are live. It is the Freight Coach Podcast, the top podcast in transportation, coming to you guys every single weekday, 8:30 a.m. Pacific, 10:30 Central, to break down some industry headlines. But most importantly, you guys provide some actual insight into what you can do with all of this information. If this is your first time tuning in, welcome. This is the real side of freight, ladies and gentlemen. And I do say that before every single show. And what I mean by that is I only speak with transportation professionals, because at the end of the day, you guys, I want to talk to the right individuals who have done what you're looking to do, or who are currently doing what you're trying to achieve. So you can take that information, apply it, utilize it, and see a meaningful difference in your business and your life. Happy Monday, everybody. I'm looking forward to today's show. I got a really special guest for you guys. We're going to come on. We're going to talk finance today. We're going to be talking about all of the stuff that's going on out there in the market. But before we do any of that, you guys, my team always loves to remind me, I need to say this at the beginning of the show as well as the end, that if you get value in what you hear today and you guys are not subscribed, do your boy a solid. Subscribe to the show. Share it out there. Rank it on iTunes and Spotify if you're feeling really ambitious, because if you see value, your network's going to see value as well. All right, back into the topic on today's show, you guys. The Fed's creeping back interest rates a little bit. There's some, tariffs are in place here with new trucks coming in, and there's a lot of stuff to kind of break down. And my resident expert on anything finance is my man, James Currier, back on the show. James, thank you so much for taking the time to join me today.
Always a pleasure, Coach. Happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
No, man, it's always like it just works out every time I invite you to come on. It's like there's something else that keeps kind of creeping up. But for me, it's like you can never be fully prepared for what is going on in as seemingly volatile of a freight market, but yet alone a financial market as well, on going out there and trying to create some form of stability. And, there's a lot of information hinging on interest rates starting to come down and what that all means and everything. So, dude, what's been going on in your world, man? How are things going?
Well, what I'll tell you is that there's no such thing as status quo anymore. The idea that anyone is going to operate as if one day is similar to the next is, it's a misnomer now. It just can't happen anymore. So it makes things chaotic, but the strong always survive.
Yeah. What are some of those principles then that speaking of the strong always surviving, right? Like I always want to try and highlight some of those success stories in markets like right now. Like how have some of your clients, in working with you, staying ahead of the curve with a lot of this stuff, James? And then maybe what are some of those principles that people have learned over these last couple of years of this is just the way we are going to operate now moving forward?
That's a great question, actually. I would say that, the strongest customers I have today are the ones who took the additional risk when times were tight, when times were tough. Somehow they make it work. They surround themselves with great teams. They get great contracts. They don't survive wholly on spot rates. There's a lot that goes into making a trucking company successful. And it's not just one factor, but certainly the willingness to take the additional risk during tough times are typically what sets really large, successful companies apart from those who wait and see what happens in the market.
Do you think that there's more opportunity, and I'm going to use air quotes, for a better deal out there, but do you think when times are more volatile and most people, go back into their shell per se, or they're like, all right, we got to go on the defensive here. So what you're saying is at least this is what I'm kind of perceiving is those ones who go all in, all offense at all times, they're trying to find that play to make it work so they can continue to apply that kind of regardless of what's going on in the market, they have their play sheet, their play calls, and they're just going to continue to execute upon that.
There's always opportunity for additional opportunities in the freight market. The companies that we're seeing that are successful right now are the ones who are pivoting and adding additional resources to their offerings to the general market. So the companies that were just straight line haul before are now offering things like, dedication or white glove service or final mile stuff. It really is, it's an opportunity to look at what you're not doing and finding out if you're able to do that, and then buy into it.
Yeah, no, I'm kind of getting to the point now where it's like my appetite for risk is growing the longer I am self-employed. And I think it's just kind of it's going to sound very simple is like, I just kind of have that all figured out mentality with it, where it's like, I already signed up for this, right? Like I'm 5+ years in to being self-employed. I've only known a chaotic market overall. Starting your business in COVID is, no small feat, but I look at it is it's like, I think that it's always volatile, right? Like if we actually pull the curtain back a little bit, James, there's always something that you can point to and be like, hey, that's volatile, that's bad, that could be an issue and stuff like that. And I think like once you kind of bite that and you choose that path, like for us inside of our business, like we're out here actively looking to acquire companies and stuff like that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like we're looking for anything and everything to really springboard our operations, because growth in specific markets might only come through acquisition, right? Or it might only come through changing your business model or adding an additional service out there. And I think like to me, it's like, man, I just want to continue to push through because somebody's going to win, right? But dude, we've been talking about this for the last 2 years that you've been coming on this show.
Mm-hmm.
Someone is going to win. Someone is going to grow during this time. I was just talking to another buddy of mine here a couple of weeks back. He's acquired like 6 companies in the last 18 months. Yeah. And they're going for it, right? So it's like, as easy it is to point to the boogeyman out there, like, oh, everything's falling. Like there are people out there who are all in at all times. They're all offense, and they're going to find a way to win. In a couple of years, people are going to be like, how'd you make it work? And the answer is simple. I didn't sit on the sidelines. I continued to go out there and reinvest in my business, find new ways to make more revenue.
Sitting on the sidelines is never a great opportunity or a great strategy for any business. There's no such thing as sitting on the sidelines anymore. If you're going to sit on the sidelines, you may as well explore the M&A market. Mergers and acquisitions are absolutely ripe right now, and I see a ton of it happening still. As bad as the freight and trucking market have been over the last 2.5 years, M&As are still happening every single day. So, there's always opportunity for somebody out there.
Yeah. I think M&A, it's going to be that's one thing that I'm always kind of watching is just the saying is as simple as this, man. Success leaves clues, and there's individuals out there who are they're looking for that, right? Like in a down market, they know that, again, I'm not advocating for anybody's failure or closing, but like they know that there is a high likelihood that somebody has over leveraged themselves, and it's going to come to a point where it's essentially going to be a fire sale. Like we just got to get whatever we can for it. And then it might be the vertical that they're looking to get into, right? Maybe they're a primary dry van carrier, and now they're going to be able to acquire a refrigerated company out there who's got an established book of business. They have established customers and everything else. They just, maybe they're maxed out on credit or whatever that looks like. And there's those opportunities that are out there. So I feel like, you have to be, patiently aggressive, you could call it. And, that because those opportunities are out there, those deals are going to continue to present themselves.
I like that term, patiently aggressive. Did you just make that up right now?
I did. I actually, it kind of just came to me. There's
good for you.
Dude, public school pays off every once in a while, James, and you come up with sayings like that.
That's fantastic. Patiently aggressive. I'm going to use that at some point.
I think you could go back and study a lot of these companies and how they operate. And, like when you're going out there and looking to add inside of or even going out there to like refinance your fleet, for example, right? Like there's obviously a right time and a wrong time to do some of this stuff. I think that the data would probably tell that. And then, they might just be the first one to get it where they're getting it just on the come up, right? Where like they're waiting to they're just about to, where it hits the bottom and stuff like that. So like, how are you working with your clients in particular, James, especially right now when the Fed out there they did lower interest rates a little bit. There's a lot kind of hinging on how aggressive they're going to go with it. So how are you working with your clients when a lot of that stuff comes out and they're like, dude, I bought it in elevated interest rate here. How do I get it down? Do I wait until a certain time? What does that look like?
Well, it's like I tell you, every time you ask a similar question, there's no such thing as a a magic bullet when you're going to do something like refinancing. Every company is different, every strategy is different, and every market is different. So we work with a lot of different companies in a lot of different geographies in order to make sure that they're not over leveraged, but still have enough operating cash flow in order to not only survive, but potentially buy into new markets and look at new opportunities. So it's a delicate and fine line that a lot of folks walk, particularly right now, where you could potentially find yourself over leveraged. And once that happens, getting out from under that rock can be very difficult if the freight market doesn't change. So it is simply a matter of sitting down with the customer, helping them understand where they want to go, and getting them to help us to understand their formal strategy moving forward and what they plan on doing, so that everyone's on the same page, right? It absolutely needs to be a partnership, and there needs to be a belief on both sides that this is for the greater good of the trucking company.
Yeah. Now, when you see, when we're looking at Class 8 trucks, falling year over year and stuff like that, how much do you attribute that to, like, it's just a slower time to buy it? Or is it people are just not looking to upgrade their fleets at this time? What parallels do you draw from stuff like that?
What I typically look at is overall consumer spending and confidence in the overall economy. Right now, generally, what we're seeing is a lack of confidence from the average consumer, which means that they're not spending the way that they were from 2019 to 2022. When that spending drastically slowed down, so did the freight market. Makes sense, right?
Yeah.
So it's no different when these massive corporations are going out and buying 100 Class 8 power units at a time. If the sentiment is not there, if the belief is not there that the economy is going to greatly improve and that they're going to get a better interest rate in order to finance the trucks, or if they're depleting cash flows in order to buy trucks, then they could potentially continue to wait. And that's what we're seeing right now. Is there are phenomenal deals to be had from the OEMs on both trucks and trailers, because the sentiment is not there in order to justify mass purchases. Fleets are managing to maintain their overall fleet age, but there's not a whole lot of growth going on.
So when that extension of a fleet goes out there like that, what does that do to the used truck market, right? Because, like, I think that, again, novice's opinion here or perspective, I feel like that would cause somebody to be less likely to want to buy a used truck at that point, right? Because there's higher mileage, more wear and tear on it. And then they're looking at that price point of it might be cheaper, obviously, to go with a used unit, but what else? Like, it might be more beneficial from a maintenance perspective and a longevity perspective to go straight to the OEM, especially if they're offering better financing terms and everything else.
Right. And so it's a phenomenal question. And so what we're seeing right now on the new and used market is that there are some great deals to be had from the OEMs. In a market like this, typically you would see the used truck market kind of stabilize, because the average trucking company is trying to get an extension of life, of useful life, out of those assets. In which case you would then typically see the new parts market for aging vehicles start to climb up. And that's where we're seeing this disconnect, is that the parts are not being sold in as much of a quantity as you would normally see when people are extending the life of a useful asset, which tells me that the wheels just aren't turning. If you're not replacing parts on an aging truck, it's because the wheels aren't turning.
Yeah. Now, do you think that, like, when you see stuff like that, is that more of a, and I guess I'm just trying to paint the picture for that individual out there who's looking to upgrade their fleet here coming up, or looking to buy? Is it, do you go new or do you go gently used? Is there that fine line that you're talking about with the replacement? If it's showing that it hasn't been rolling, is that actually a negative out there? Because like obviously trucks are made to drive, and the more you drive them, you got to replace stuff, you got to maintain them. And do you guys view like a lighter maintenance record as more of like a negative of when somebody out there is looking to purchase that vehicle?
No, not necessarily. There's a lot of good used equipment on the market right now. Fleets are resizing appropriately, and there's tons and tons of opportunity to both buy new and used equipment and get it financed for what I would call a pretty tremendous rate in an overall macro sense.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, looking at the rates historically, right now you're actually doing pretty well compared to the last 20 years.
Mm-hmm. Now, do you think that like why does it seem so painful though overall? Is it because all other costs are elevated out there? Because they talk about that in the freight market too, James, right? Where they're like, hey, if you actually go back over the last 20 years, rates are higher than what they are on average and everything else. But do you guys look at it as like when we factor in inflation, repair costs, everything is up? It seems like it's just complete ass backwards and flipped upside down because of that.
Well, rates, I believe, year over year are up something like maybe 5 to 6% on the average spot market charts that I'm looking at. That's not enough to justify the inflation that we've seen over the past few years. We've seen trailer and truck prices go up in double-digit percentages. An increase in the spot market rate by 6 or 7% even is nowhere close to being able to justify the increase in both the interest rate that we've seen and the overall cost of the equipment, the cost of technicians. The insurance costs have gone through the roof over the past few years. There's a real disconnect, and the balance has started to happen where, with a lot of carriers exiting the market over the last, call it 16 to 18 months, specifically, the balance is happening, but it hasn't happened in nearly as quick of an order as everyone anticipated. It seems to be dragging on for whatever reason. Now, maybe it was because of the amount of cash that was held after 22, because everyone had a phenomenal year. I couldn't tell you exactly the reason as far as a general sense, but it boils down to there are opportunities to get whatever you want and grow in the direction you want.
Yeah. No, I think that a lot of, man, this doesn't sound overly simple, but it's like there's a lot to be learned about kind of where things are going right now. And I know that like every business goes through that phase of like you go from not making money to like you make a lot of money, and then you might spend a little bit recklessly or whatever that looks like. But again, like that rebalancing act, I think is an extended time. And I like to, again, I'm trying to look at from like the positives in a lot of this stuff out there is the fact of the matter is your financial acumen has to be top notch if you're going to make it in business, right? Like you need to understand this stuff because like we can't control interest rates at the end of the day, right? Like we cannot control an administration increasing tariffs on other countries and stuff. Like we cannot control that at the end of the day. We have to learn from the hand that we're dealt, and we have to play it to the best of our abilities out there. And I feel like I want to continue to put more and more of an emphasis on the financial aspect of this stuff is because I feel like it's the most overlooked component of all the headlines that you see out there, James, at the end of the day, right? Like you see bad freight market, you see bad this, but it's like, all right, well, how do we improve people's financial acumen here inside of their operations to where they can weather this stuff, right? Because this isn't the first time it's been a challenging financial market out there, right? And it's not going to be the last time that we're going to see this in our lives. I hope it's the last time we see it, but the
wouldn't that be nice?
Not, right?
Not a reality though. And so maybe I can give you an analogy. If you were to say that you were sitting down and playing poker with your friends, typically you would get in Texas Hold'em, you would get 2 cards and you would look at those cards and say, this is my probability of winning. And then you would bet based on your probabilities versus the probability of somebody else winning. That's what we would call acumen. as far as playing poker. And in trucking, it's very similar. Your financial acumen absolutely is paramount in running a successful company. Now, picture not knowing what your cards are and then trying to make that same bet. That's what companies are going through right now. They have no idea what the tariffs are going to look like tomorrow. And so the sentiment is essentially trying to bet on something that really has no semblance of consistency or accuracy from day to day, week to week, and month to month. If the administration continues to pressure China and well, candidly, other friendly countries, you know, the sentiment doesn't improve any month over month. And that's where the real challenge comes in, is that you can be as financially smart and literate as anyone out there, but if you don't know what the rules of the game are and you don't know what cards you're playing, it won't matter.
Mm-hmm. No, it's very accurate, James. I mean, I've talked about that a lot on the show in regards to tariffs, and it's very crushing to the small to mid-sized companies that are out there who are trying to make it work right now. And if you do look at in inflation and everything else and the overall economy, right? Like we need to get back to the time where we can just call a spade a spade. And it's not as good as people are trying to market it to be, at least on Main Street, right? Maybe on Wall Street and other areas out there, but at least on Main Street in real America, it's not as glamorous as the picture is being painted out there. Now, like I've stated on the show before, and I'll state it again for context, I am a fan of reindustrializing North America in the United States, right? Like I
absolutely,
and I think it, because they had talked about the 25% tariffs on medium and heavy duty class 3 to 8 trucks and parts coming out there. And I think it is important to note, because I haven't seen this really being talked about, is there are exemptions out there between United States, Mexico, and Canada. If, as long as there's obviously some rules that are in place for that. And it had talked about like the final assembly essentially being here inside of the United States, or like inside of US, Mexico, and Canada. That final assembly is here. It's exempt from that tariff, even if you are and then the tariff will come in on the components that are sent into pre-manufacturing.
Right.
And I think that's, go ahead.
Do you know who tracks all of this?
I'm trying to find a lot of that. The hard part of what, as somebody who is in the, the media that such as myself is it's very hard to discern truth and untruth. And it's very hard to discern.
Big challenge.
Yeah. And that's one thing that I'm trying to, and that's honestly why I've taken the stance of waiting a couple of days for when there is like a hot breaking headline that comes out, because I want to see more further information that happens. Because when we were talking about, last week when the administration released that they're going to do a 25% tariff out there, everything left out the exemption part of that, right? So everyone was like, how can we do this to Canada? How can we do this to Mexico? They're our partners. Yeah, they are. And there's exemptions that came along with it, right? So I feel like it's
those exemptions weren't mentioned during the announcement. And that's what people got frustrated with.
I know.
When you're not actually stating what the rules are, nobody knows how to play the game.
And that right there, though, again, it's such a miss on marketing. And that's what shocks me about it is, James, is like this administration is the most active on social media I've ever seen. How are you not out there preaching all of that? Like, hey, our friends to the north and to the south, you're good from this. I don't understand. I think it's just that headline chaos mentality that a lot of marketing people do out there, because as long as they're talking about it, it's going to be a hot button issue. So I know I've asked you this every single time you've been on the show here coming up, James, and in the past, but I feel like it's important, right? Like what are some words of advice that you can give out there to those fleets and people who are in that, because again, it's budget season, it's Q4. A lot of people are looking like, hey, what are we going to be doing here in early 2026? What are our moves? From your seat, what is some tangible advice you can deliver out there to people who are listening to this?
I'll use your new term and be patiently aggressive.
Yeah.
There is always an opportunity to succeed and to grow. Work with your partners, work with your vendors. I get calls from folks all the time asking for new introductions to, who do you know in the tire space where I can potentially get a better deal on 10,000 tires a year? There's always an opportunity. Folks like you who have been in the industry for a long time tend to know a lot of people. So what I would suggest is utilize your network, use your resources to the best of your ability, surround yourself with people who are smart and agile and patiently aggressive, and make good decisions.
Yeah, it's there.
Now is not the time for panic.
Yeah, no, I agree, and I also look at it like this: like if you've survived this far with it, like
you're doing well.
You're doing a lot better than you think, right? And it's hard to take that perspective, James, when you're trying to balance your cash flow out to ensure that all your bills are getting paid on time and you're not asking for extensions or anything like that. But I look at it as you're a lot better than you think you are, especially if you're surviving right now. And
that's a great way of putting it. And sorry to interrupt, but so many folks that I talk to feel like they wake up and get kicked every single day.
Yeah.
And the reality is that if you're operating profitably right now and continue to be profitable, then you're better than a lot of the folks out there. It's sad to say, but the past couple of years has been an opportunity for folks to really flex and show their jam.
Mm-hmm. No, I agree. I agree. Right. And I also, again, I'm trying to, I'm an optimistic realist is how I like to approach my days at when it boils down to it. And I look at it as we are internally, like we're focusing so much more on our systems than anything, right? Like, hey, we've been able to grow year over year, which is phenomenal, but it's like, all right, now that we got to this point, and how do we take it to that next level, right? Like, and it's more refining your roles. And again, like you got to know your numbers. And I know that that's talked about often, but I don't know if enough people approach it with the right mentality of like, I dissect my P&L every 30 days. Like I look at every dollar that's going out and being like, is this actually necessary? Or is this another thing that we're paying for because it was cool in the moment and we forgot about it? And I think like it's just that death by 1,000 cuts analogy, James. I think that there's a lot more little expenses that are bleeding organizations than that one death blow that a lot of people focus on. Cause I think it's just that trickle up effect.
Well, one good point that my boss always makes is that at Finlock, we all have this / miscellaneous job title. So whatever your job title is / miscellaneous. I removed the job title from my business cards and email signature years ago because I'm the chief window washer. If you need something done, I'm going to make sure it happens and gets done for the betterment of my customer, my company. I've got duties to serve because we are a service-based organization. At the end of the day, we're just an independent lender in the trucking space, and you have to make things happen. So it's all hands on deck. Make sure you get the job done by any means necessary in order to move forward.
Exactly. Everybody's got competition out there. You guys got competition. I have competition. And like you said there, man, so that whatever it takes mentality. What do you need me to do? I'll do it. You got to provide that service and you got to provide it at a better level than anybody else. But James, as always, I appreciate you jumping on with me, man. How does anybody reach out to you to find out more about what you guys got going on?
LinkedIn's always a great way, and james.currier@finlock.com. Always happy to answer your questions. And again, Jolly, as always, man, thanks for having me.
Dude, 100%, man. We'll have you back on, James. James is our resident financial expert on this show. You guys, especially when it comes down to any of your equipment needs, hit him up. You guys, he's been a great resource for the show over the years. But that is going to be it for today, ladies and gentlemen. As always, if you got value in what you heard, subscribe to the show, you guys. And if you're feeling ambitious, rank it on iTunes and Spotify, because if you see value, your network's going to see value as well. I appreciate you guys. I love you guys. And we'll be talking to you soon.